Welcome, everybody. I'm Valerie Cole, and I'm, as Virginia mentioned, do we need another handout? Yes. I am the vice chair of the Otsego County Democratic Committee. I'm also on the steering committee for the Oneonta Democratic Club, and I am a peacekeeper with Cooperstown Oneonta Indivisible. I'm the best peacekeeper. Which basically means that I'm pushy. But it works out well. I've been involved with Indivisible since Virginia started it, and thank you to Virginia for starting it, yes. Yeah. Did you not get one? Oh, I'm sorry. So this workshop came about because as we were talking on the planning committee about what we were going to be doing for the breakout groups here at the summit, we had the social media, and then we had the canvassing strategy breakout groups, and we thought it would be good to have another session that would be focusing on how people are running their groups, or how, what kind of support people might need in terms of running their groups. Knowing that the target audience for the summit was going to be, quote, the grass tops, or the people that are in leadership positions around the district, we wanted to figure out something that we could do that would help people stay in the fight, do the fight more efficiently, more effectively, and just be supportive to them. And so the Volunteer Recruitment and Leadership Support Subcommittee said, okay, well, what can we do? And I had done a burnout presentation a few months ago that had gone over very well, I think. It was fairly well attended and was pretty good. People got a lot out of it. But then there were other people that said, no, we need to know about how to recruit volunteers. And then other people said, no, we need to know how to build our leadership because we've got all these volunteers, but nobody takes responsibility for anything. And I'm like, okay, we'll just do it all, Which basically meant, sorry, I think I just hit your thingy. So basically that meant that I decided to put together a presentation on all three. Is that yours or is that mine?
You can have it.
No, this one's mine. Okay. So I decided, okay, I will just put together all three topics because they're all, little topics that we can, knock off in 5 minutes or so, right? Volunteer recruitment, leader development, and avoiding burnout. Yeah. And so what I've done is I put together this handout that has lots of links in it. And what I'm hoping to do is to facilitate a discussion among all of you about these topics, because these all are huge topics. Each one of them could be a day-long workshop, if not several-day workshop, to talk about how to get volunteers, how to get more volunteers, what kinds of leadership models might be helpful, how you should be doing leadership, or how to take care of yourself and avoid burnout. So all of them are really pretty important. So what I'd first like to do is just do a quick introduction, because I want to know who's here. So just give me your name, where you're from, what organization you're involved with, maybe what your position is in that organization. But considering we got a bunch of people here, let's make it as short as we can. So brevity with impact, okay? So as I said, I'm Valerie Cole. Hit it, Soraya.
Hi, my name is Soraya Sharker, she, her pronouns. I am with Indivisible National. I'm one of the associate organizing directors, and I support Lupinski in managing New York State.
Wonderful, thank you.
I'm Janice Beefpack. I'm with Oregon Valley Indivisible in Delaware County, and we don't have Indivisible now, so they're working on it. peacekeeper also.
Okay, great. Janice?
I'm Sue Stein. I'm with Indivisible Tompkins.
Okay.
I'm Lolly Edinger. I'm in the town of Olive in Ulster County. I am on the steering committee with several people, including Robin over there. I'm also a home care worker and an active with Caring Majority Rising and Caring Majority, which is all around home care. And I'm also an affiliate with Working Families Party.
Okay, great, wonderful.
I'm Spence Halpern, Western Catskills International from Morfordville.
Okay. Well, Western Catskills International?
Indivisible.
You're indivisible.
I was creating an international organization.
Okay. Okay.
It's the center.
Okay, congratulations with your reach. Yes.
I'm Bernard Cohen. I was one of the founders of Western Catskills Indivisible. I'm on the steering committee. We're in Delaware County.
Oh.
So, talk to me, Pat.
Absolutely.
My name is Myrna Markarian. I'm co-chair of the Bethel Democratic Committee. I'm co-chair of the Sullivan County DSA Working Group and member of Indivisible. We are one, Sullivan County.
Excellent.
I'm Sarai Halliday, with Butternut Valley Indivisible, and I live in Gilbertsville, we meet in Gilbertsville, and I like to say that we are small, but we are fierce.
Oh, absolutely. Well,
Hi, I'm Caitlin Rudy. I'm with Indivisible National. I'm actually originally from Rensselaer County. I'm the deputy political director.
I'm Brian McHugh. I'm from Ulster County, town of Olive as well. And I'm here from Michelle Hinchy's campaign for state senate. I'm campaign manager.
oh, okay, great, wonderful.
I'm Robin Pearl Schultes. I co-lead Action with Lolly. I write a call script that goes out to all the indivisible groups in Ulster County with a friend of mine. So we focus our calls each week. And I'm on the UC Josh 19 campaign team for Ulster County.
Okay.
I'm Rita Casassa. I'm from Oneonta, and I belong to the Cooperstown Oneonta Indivisible. And I'm going to be hopefully a soon to be member of the Otsego County Democratic Committee.
I think you are.
Okay.
You just haven't started yet, but you are.
Okay. Wasn't sure.
I'm Deborah Marcus. I live in Oneonta. I'm a member of Cooperstown Oneonta Indivisible under Virginia's leadership. And I'm a member of the City of Oneonta Democratic Club under Valerie's leadership. So they're the experts on how to do it.
Yeah, no, I don't think so, but yeah. I think you do okay.
I'm Virginia Kennedy, group leader of Cooperstown Oneonta Indivisible and founder. We often work with Butternut Valley Indivisible, Cherry Valley Indivisible, and Indivisible plus Schoharie County. We often work together as a group collaboration. I teach here, and I also work with United University Professions, the union, in helping the local chapter to organize and do rallies and things like that.
My name's Anna Najelski, and I live in New Lisbon, and I'm part of Butternut Valley Indivisible, and I am also going to be a brand new member of the Otsego County Democratic Committee.
Oh, yay. Well, nice to meet you, Anna. Okay. Well, wonderful. Thank you. What a great group. So, as I said, we've got three really huge topics: volunteer recruitment, leader development, and avoiding burnout. So, is there any one particular topic that people are dying to talk about? Go ahead, Burnout. Pardon me? Burnout. Okay. What was yours?
Volunteer recruitment, but I think burnout comes with all three of these topics.
Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that. So yes, the reason I have this little graphic here like this, it took a lot to make this graphic. No. Is because, if you can't get volunteers, you're going to burn out. If you can't get volunteers, there is nobody to promote into leadership positions. and if you're in active burnout, you're not going to recruit volunteers because you're not going to be in any psychological space to recruit people, right? You're not going to be able to develop leaders because a lot of times people who are in active burnout are people who are saying, I have to do it myself. If I don't do it, nobody will do it. And nobody can do it the way I do it, and it'll take me so long to explain it that I might as well just do it myself, right? So yeah, they're all interconnected. You can't really, you can split them apart for a workshop, perhaps, but when you're running your group, you really have to be paying attention to all three of them. So Patty, come get this. And we didn't get an introduction from you, Beth.
My name is Beth Rock. Let's see, I am living in East Meredith half-time between now and the elections in order to work on this and the other local campaigns. That's because my daughter lives here and I have a home here. But I also live in Brooklyn. I've had the opportunity to be involved in the Mamdani campaign a little bit, which has been really, really, really inspiring, eye-opening, and full of lessons. And I work with Western Catskills Indivisible. I do a lot of other food justice work and everything, and I come at this mostly as a community organizer. Like, I'm here to stay, I'm here to build roots in a community, and to build, long-term community power.
Okay.
And the elections are one aspect of that.
Okay, great. And Patty, would you like to introduce yourself?
Me?
Yes.
No. Sorry. I'm Patty Giltner. I'm the chair of the Shenango County Democratic Party. And
I'm going to move over a little.
Let's try to not be in your way.
No, you're not.
And I'm also one of the, well, I'm not the founder, but been involved in Shenango Change Indivisible since the very beginning, and been on the leadership team since the beginning.
So you're tired, okay.
It's a busy time.
Okay. All right, so let's talk a little bit about volunteer recruitment first before we move on to other stuff. So what I've given you here, if you look on pages 2 and 3, are some things that I pulled off the internet about developing a volunteer recruitment strategy, the 5 elements of a volunteer recruitment plan, some methods, and then a bunch of resources. So rather than going through them, because to me that's a really boring presentation, that's like, putting up a PowerPoint and then just reading the points. What I'd love to know is what has worked when you have needed to get more volunteers into your organization. What has worked for you?
Having a specific task.
Okay, like?
So right before the election, I started calling sort of Democratic people involved, on the committee, and then people who've been sort of we have not created a club yet, but we're in the process of trying to create a club. But we have sort of people that have been around. So I called all these people, and I basically said, I'm getting some literature printed up. I need volunteers to go here, 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 and here to Canvas before the. So I said, sign up, which one you want. Everybody signed up, everybody went out, and people were actually doing stuff. But it was just a matter of having something and then telling people, go there. And kind of people sometimes just need somebody to get things going.
Well, yes, some people, you need to get things going. But what was specifically so useful about what she did? Why did it work so well?
There was already a defined task.
There was a defined task.
Right.
She
So
had
people had to come in and they knew what they had to do. It was
Right.
a defined
And
task.
it's not intimidating because of that.
Right.
It's manageable for someone to imagine themselves doing.
Right. What was the other thing? How about marketing? How did she know who she was going to call?
She called people who she knew would had an interest in the event or topic or political affiliation.
Did you have to convince them about the mission?
No, because it was a situation where there are people in our sphere who have not been engaged, but they have expressed interest in being engaged. So it's just nobody had, and unfortunately on my committee, people are not very proactive. So somebody has to take the bull by the horns, essentially.
Exactly. That's, I mean, if you put out a call for volunteers to help,
Nobody calls.
nobody calls. Well, you know, we have on the Otsego County Democratic Committee website, I put a volunteer form on there. So, and this is something else I think is really important, is people need to know how to get in contact with you. They need a really clear way to get in contact with you. These fabulous postcards that we put together have a space where you're going to put contact information, where you're going to say, this is who you call, or this is the website, or this is a QR code, however you want to do it. But somewhere that people are going to be able to contact the organization. Then, once they contact the organization, especially if you don't know who they are, or they've never volunteered before, they're not a friend, somebody that you know you've already got information on, you've got to have some way for them to give you their information. So a volunteer form of some sort, whether you give it to them as a, you know, in a paper, I don't know what this stuff is called anymore. You know, whether you give it to them as paper or whether you give them a link, they've got to have some place where they can go give their name, phone number, email, etc.
But Valerie, if you don't know who they are, don't you have to vet them somehow?
Yes, just having them fill out the form is not the end, right? So you have them fill out the form. I mean, if people go to the OtsegoDemocrats.com and click on the volunteer link, they'll get taken to a form. They'll give me a whole bunch of information. One of the pieces of information that they'll get is the specific task. So I put this together while we were still petitioning. So the task was, we need to collect signatures on petitions to get candidates on the ballot. Are you willing to do that? And had yes, no, maybe, right? I think out of the 20, I got 3 yeses. Well, better than nothing, but I wouldn't call that a huge success. But it was, you know, it was better than nothing. But it was a specific ask, and they were able to respond to it. Virginia?
I just think about it a little bit differently. So I'm just curious as to how other people think about this, because it's, you know, there's positive and negatives. So I don't think in terms of volunteers, I think in terms of members. So anybody who's in the group is a potential volunteer. And then to give the group a unified identity where people who are coming into the group feel like they're part of something before I start asking them to do things. So I put out a newsletter once a week. It is an incredible stress every week to put that thing together and get it out. But it has doorways in it for the whole membership. You know, I don't like to rally, well, you can call. I don't like to knock on doors, well, you can write postcards. So gathering the members first and then making them part of a group that has an identity, a unified identity, that we care about each other, you know, we're Cooperstown, Oneonta, Indivisible, and then from within that group identity, trying to find people who are willing to do specific activities.
Right, and I mean, that is a different approach, but I think some of it's similar in that so if you were to look at this, your target audience for volunteers would be the membership, right? So you're not going to use one of these volunteer platform sites and put on idealist.org, we have volunteer opportunities. You're going to ask indivisible members, would you like to volunteer? Then the specific task is still going to be really important. What am I volunteering for? I'm volunteering for doing postcards, or I'm volunteering for petitioning, or I'm, whatever it is. So I think it's a similar process. It's just kind of in a different order, in a way, maybe. Mm-hmm.
I think my interest in this conversation is how to recruit members, not even volunteers, because at this point our group is so small that we're all leaders.
Okay.
Give or take a few. So.
And which group are you in again?
Butternut Valley Indivisible.
Okay.
So yeah, how to attract members.
I have something on that.
Go ahead.
We started a rally, and then we made like a brochure of our group, and so, and then like we have signs available, pre-made signs, so that you could just, like somebody could just come, and then most of the people we've gotten are through the rally.
And it's a regular rally, like at the same time.
Same time every week, and then somebody, not me, thought of making it a food drive for our local food pantry. So then that took care of, well, first our worry about the people in our community who we live with like rural poverty. And then it also was like, what good is it standing with a sign?
Right.
Then you could say like, we actually keep this food
We're doing
pantry full
something.
every week, you know? So that, and then a lot of people, it's like 20 to 40 people, sometimes up to 70. We're on the side of a road. We're finding a safer spot. But for some people, most everybody, that's like the main thing they do is come. And then from that, we've gotten like our steering committee and this, and then we're kind of stuck. I have questions about leader development. But that really helped us because it was, and then for some people, like a few people drive like a half hour, 40 minutes because they feel like it's their chance to talk to people on the line about just not feeling so isolated. So I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, and like handing out these postcards at that rally with the information of, how to be more involved as a member would be helpful as well.
Right, so I'm also a member of BVI, and we have quite a few people who are members of our Facebook group.
Yeah.
So I guess part of what I'm hoping along with Sarai is how do we increase engagement? Like, so once we've gotten people to kind of, align with us, to join with us, to read our newsletter, to join our Facebook group, and many of those people will come to big events, like they'll come to the rallies in Oneonta, but how do we get people more engaged off that member list to come to our monthly meetings, to come to events that we're doing, and things like that?
So that's more like volunteer management, which is interesting because that's what we ended up spending a huge amount of time on in the previous session, as opposed to recruitment.
I just want to say, as far as getting volunteers engaged, I know for me, sometimes the best, what has convinced me to do things is someone personally asking me.
Absolutely.
So, for like our rally that we had here in Oneonta, Teresa, it's hard to say no to Teresa. And so when she asked us all to be peacekeepers, all of a sudden our entire group was peacekeepers. So, or like, Kathy, I find her also very convincing when she said, you could be on the Democratic committee. I said, okay, and you can go out canvassing, you can go collect ballot signatures. And I was like, but having someone personally ask you and tell you, you can do this, I think sometimes helps a lot.
Absolutely. One of the things the part I didn't mention about my background is that I volunteered for the American Red Cross in disaster services for 10 years, and then I moved to Washington, D.C. and was at national headquarters as the manager of disaster mental health, disaster health services, and disaster spiritual care. So I've had a lot of time thinking about the care and feeding of volunteers. Okay, there were 2 employees at American Red Cross in disaster mental health. I don't know how many there are now, probably only 1. In disaster mental health, and like 5,000 volunteers across the country. So the care and feeding of volunteers is incredible. incredibly important. Getting people involved and getting them engaged does depend a lot on personal interactions. You know, if I ask you personally to come sit at a rally with me or come stand at a rally with me, you're a lot less likely to say no than if I just put an ad in the paper or something like that. The other thing we found out that, and this is, you know, the research that has been done about why do people volunteer for nonprofits, they volunteer because of the mission, and that's why we're all here, right? The mission of keeping New York 19 blue is really important to us. But the main reason they show up again and again and again and again is because of the camaraderie, the community, the people. As you know, when Virginia was talking about, she gets members that all feel like they're a part of something. That is huge, absolutely huge. So I can't, you know, I really can't overstate how important that is. So doing that personal invitation is essential. Mm-hmm.
With this DSA, we do socials every couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings a lot of people out.
Mm-hmm.
And people will sign up.
So when you do the social, then if you have the specific task
Right.
that
And
they
ask
can,
people to sign up to do something.
yeah,
Right.
absolutely. That's a good way to do it. Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing that is important is conveying successes. You know, even if it's like, okay, we started this group and then we're 5 people and now we're 25 people, or we were able to do, you know, raise $2,000 for the local food pantry, or, you know, whatever it is. But people also like to join something that has a feeling of momentum.
Absolutely.
So that their time is well spent.
Well, and I think even if you haven't done a huge amount yet, the positivity that you bring to the endeavor, you know, so even if this is the first rally you're putting together and there's really only 10 people here, wow, we got 10 people, you know. So that is really important for the leader to engage other people, is to say, yeah, we're all on the same team, we've got a fabulous mission, and we've got hope and positivity. We're going to get there. Spence?
I think once certain people, once they decide they want to join, become a member, it also depends. It depends on how they're treated once they become a member.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been a volunteer my whole life in many different situations, and I find for myself that when I'm volunteering with a group and they're not just giving me instructions or orders, but they're also asking me what do I think and how do I think, I find those to be much more interesting because, you know what, maybe I know something that you don't know.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
we often don't know the backgrounds of some of our volunteers. We think we do.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've noticed in Western Catskills is that when people I've met who come forward to volunteer, you have no idea unless you have a conversation with them what their background is and what their skill level is.
Absolutely.
And I have been floored from time to time. I have a saying I always, Bernard, my partner, I always say, I met another Nobel Prize winner today. Because there are so many people who they may be retired or they may be doing something and they don't brag. But that's what I find, that there's so much hidden talent that's not
Absolutely.
tapped. And then people feel, well, I don't think they really need me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, volunteers, one, need to feel needed.
Yeah.
Very important. But on that volunteer form, however you're collecting the information, one of the questions that should be asked is, what do you want to do? Or what skills do you have that you think might be helpful for the group? And then really paying attention to it. If somebody says, I like to bake, you don't give them the website. You know, but if somebody says, I'm a web developer, you don't ask them to, you know, do the bake sale, right? So it's really important. The other thing is timeliness. If you're getting responses, if you've put out a call for volunteers and you're getting responses, follow up immediately, you know, within a day or two. Nothing turns people off more than saying, well, I tried to volunteer, but nobody got back to me. You know, at one point at national headquarters, they did at the Red Cross, the IT people did an analysis of what it takes to go from the National Red Cross website to volunteering at a local chapter. It was 30 steps. We kind of went, no wonder we're not getting very many volunteers. You know, you've got to make it easy and you've got to follow up. Basically, the idea is that anybody who volunteers, anybody who's willing to do any work for your organization is a piece of gold. You know, that is an absolute piece of gold that you need to treat as a jewel and appreciate and recognize and thank. You cannot thank volunteers enough. You need to thank them all the time. And trust me, having been in volunteer management for a long time, I know that a lot of volunteers, especially when they've been around for a little while, you know, a couple years, they think that they know better than you. And, you know, they think they're the cat's pajamas and that you just, you know, are lucky to have them. And it is annoying as all get out. You know, as an employee, a manager of them, I was like, I wish she would just do it. You know what?
Well, I'm never volunteering for you.
Exactly. And the thing is, you know, ultimately, they're absolutely right. They probably do know really well what they're doing, even if you're trying to change the procedure somewhat. And they really are gold and valuable, and you should be grateful that they're willing to do whatever.
People will do a better job if they feel like they're seen,
If they
appreciated,
absolutely.
and not corrected every time a volunteer comes up with something, especially when you're new.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
Right.
I just want to bring something in here.
Sure.
And maybe I'm going to take us in the burnout direction.
Okay.
Sooner than you want, so back me off.
That's okay.
If I'm
As I said, these are all interconnected. I'm willing to.
So, well, first, a lot of what we have done in the last year is we go to where people are. So we table at Juneteenth, we table at Earth Fest, you know, we table at the county fair. We, you know, they did the play, what was the name of the play about the Constitution? What the Constitution means to me. We had a table there. The young people do Dance for Democracy. We have a table there. So we go out to where people are. We've developed some materials, you know, a good brochure on why get involved and different materials to have for people. And then we go to where people are. And we need volunteers to do that, right, to do all that tabling. And I try to be very gracious and thankful and supportive of my volunteers. The problem with this is that I am also a volunteer. And I used to I ran 2 different nonprofits, and I realized that I'm acting like I'm in charge, and I don't think in a bad way, I don't mean that in a bad way, but like, I'm paid staff, I'm the executive director, and I'm getting volunteers, and I'm directing them, and then if they can't make it, that's okay, I'm gonna go do it, because this is my group, and so what ends up happening is I also have a job, you know, I have a job for which I have to work and make money, and I'm the leader of this group, and I feel sometimes that I've positioned myself in letting people perceive me as the person getting paid when they're not. And so they are the volunteer, and then if they can't make it, I'm gonna go do the shift because it's my job. And I have done that. I have filled in for every shift. I have, you know, which is positive because the group continues to grow, we continue to bring people in, we continue to be strong. And I'll just finish, and burn out, yeah, because you're trying to work full-time and then you're trying to do this on the side. And so I gathered a couple of my very best volunteers the other day, and I felt bad about it almost, but I said to them, I need help. I need help with this leadership, I need help. And they were so genuinely, yes, we're gonna do that for you. And I'm like, I need to ask more people. I need to let more people. You know, I need to figure out how to do that, because we have a good sized group and we have wonderful people. So I bring that to the table because, yes, we have to thank our volunteers, we have to support our volunteers, but at the same time, we are also volunteers. And there has to be some kind of balance so that you're not crying on the floor, you know, by the end of the week.
Can I add something to that?
Sure, go ahead.
This comes partly from being exposed to the Mamdani campaign, but also being exposed to ICE response work. I don't know if anybody else here is involved in it at all. But, you know, having been an organizer and a political activist in my youth, I see such a difference between the way we used to organize, which was very sort of top-down-ish. And I don't mean that in the same way you're talking about it. You don't mean it in any sort of dictatorial way or control-seeking way, right? But we used to start from a mission up here and some program that people had derived, and then the ways that we're going to plug in the volunteers, when in fact we're all volunteers. And what's happening now in more youth-led movements is that we can together create these organizations that sort of let 1,000 flowers bloom. Some new person comes along with a different way of doing something, and you may not agree, you might be a little skeptical. You encourage people to try new things and to take ownership. And it builds a different kind of momentum. You know,
And it's a more decentralized model.
More decentralized, and it's a more, you know, what I notice in the communities I operate in is that there'll be a group that comes together to do this protest at Target, and people get to know each other and they network, and so then some of them decide they're going to go off and do this, and then there's that, and you know, you meet together at a monthly meeting maybe, and there's a lot of successes to share, there's a lot of ideas, there's a feeling that everybody can contribute whatever it is they bring to the table. You know, this is something that I've learned from working in these sort of youth-led organizations. It's a very different model and really important for us older folks to learn from.
I think that's a really great point. And if you look at some of the leadership stuff, one of the things, especially on page 5, the collaborative leadership and the collective leadership, my bias is towards non-hierarchical types of organizations. And so if you, I mean, obviously we don't have time to go into these in detail, but the whole idea of finding a way to develop leadership, not by, you know, promoting people in a hierarchical kind of thing, but by allowing the talent and the skills and the initiative to bubble up is really, I think that's what you're talking about, and it's a much more sustainable way. So some people like look at and I don't have any resources in here of that, but there is a movement of looking at permaculture, which is a way of doing sustainable agriculture as a model for social organizations. You know what I'm talking about. Not many people do. And that basically you allow the leadership to come forward. It's a little bit more chaotic. It feels chaotic. If you are the type of leader that wants to know where, you know, all the ducks are to make sure that they're in a row, you're probably not going to feel real comfortable with that kind of leadership. But if you're the kind of person who likes to hear a lot of voices before any kind of proposal shows up as to what you're going to do, then you will feel more comfortable with it. And I think like the Occupy movement was an example of how this kind of came about and can be really helpful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Wally and my group, we have some of that. Like we had somebody just came up with an idea to do a documentary film series to like educate, and she just does it, you know, and invites people, you know, and then somebody else wanted to start a visibility brigade, and a couple of people volunteer with her, and they just go do it, you know, and all I have to do is like put the pictures up or send an email out about it.
Or share it to the group if there's other people that might want to join.
And somebody else wanted to be in like arts activism with another group, you know, so, and it sort of started because my husband got a little ill, and I was like at bandwidth, and I reached out and said I can't do more, and people
Just start showing up.
Yeah, they really did. You know, we're a little stuck. I would say is we don't have like a steady. We have people can volunteer a little bit in those things, but what we could use more is like we don't really have a task. I guess if we got postcarding together, that would be the next.
I mean, we've definitely tried, like we've done meetings where we're working on posters for Next No King.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's some downtime, which, you know, sometimes is okay.
Well, it's sometimes okay to have downtime, and you can have social time too during that downtime.
And we do have plans for social coming up.
Yeah.
One of the resources that I do know about that you might want to look at is, I don't know if I have it. Yeah, the Starhawk, The Movement We Need. It's on page 6. And she talks about using permaculture as a model for social movements. So reading The Movement We Need. And this resource about the 5-fold path of productive meetings is, I think, a really helpful article. I mean, it's just a short 6-page article, I think, but it basically just talks about if you want to sustain your volunteers, if you want to, continue to grow your group, you don't want meetings where people come and they're like, oh my God, this is so disorganized, and why are we here, and what are we doing? And you want meetings that are useful and productive. And so what she talks about is having what she calls the 5-fold path, kind of like the Buddhist 7-fold path, right? Having the right people, depending on what kind of, what you're doing at that meeting. Are you doing high-level decisions? Are you doing, tactics as to how are we going to get the peacekeepers out and what are they going to do? What are you doing so you have the right people and you don't involve the people that don't need to be there? You have the right container, should this be done in person? If you're going to be talking about really sensitive stuff that could be very highly conflicted, maybe don't want to do that on Zoom. Maybe you want to do that in person, So what is the container? What is the process? Is this going to be something where we're going to follow Robert's Rules of Order? Or is it going to be a free-flow discussion? Are we going to do a go-round where we want to make sure that every single person has their voice heard? Or are we just going to be kind of presenting information? So what is the process? What kind of facilitation? What is the right facilitation? Again, is it something where you're trying to get people to talk, or are you trying to, work through a motion to get to a vote, And then obviously, what is the right agenda for that particular meeting? And as you're building your organization, so if you're having a social event, that's going to be really different than if you're trying to decide if you're going to spend money on something, right? So, looking at some of that kind of stuff as well. Thank you so much for bringing that up. We did, as the volunteer recruitment group, we have tried to get in touch with some people from Mom Donnie's campaign who ended up kind of becoming a volunteer management organization themselves, and they weren't able to come today. But we are trying to get more information from that campaign because, yeah, it's kind of incredible what they did. So, other thoughts? Should we?
Oh, I just had one. So
Sure.
when you were talking about sort of that decentralized leadership model and that when people have an idea, they're able to do that. I did a training through Indivisible, the organizing plan training, and one of the documents was the Get to Yes. When I talk about it, you know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. Which was really, it was something that I hadn't seen before, and it's a document put together by Indivisible that basically, if somebody comes to your group and says, hey, we should do this, that you're then able to take that document and say, all right, let's work on this, and then you sort of can fill in the blanks on it, and then it turns what can be, instead of people just coming to your organization and say, let's do this, why aren't you guys doing it? You can say, okay, let's do it, but this is a framework in which we can find the answers, and so that we can hold this event, or whether it's even feasible to hold this event.
Yeah.
Sarah shared it out during one of the calls, but if you're looking for it, you have it.
Okay.
I have it in my email, and I think we shared it to our Slack channel possibly.
Good.
And yes, Sarah created it to help, it's good.
Yeah, it's I like it a lot. I think
It's called Getting to a Yes document. She has like two that go hand in hand around organizing an event. But I will have, if you email her, she can send it to you.
Sarah Brisky.
Sarah, Getting to a Yes.
Getting to Yes.
Yeah,
Great.
the frustration we find in our group is, there's a lot of energy around the Big Beautiful Bill, and we have a lot of people coming saying, you should do this, you should do this. So then the next meeting we said, okay, so we narrowed it down to 4 main things, 4 subjects like ICE, Big Beautiful Bill. I'm like, okay, who wants to do this? Who wants to do this? So we put people in working groups, and in the moment they did stuff, but as soon as you ask them to do anything outside of group, meeting time, fell flat. Now we're back down to the same recurring sort of 6 to 10 members, I would say. So that's been frustrating. Another thing I wanted to bring up is I've been reading a lot about the civil rights movement, and there's a lot of talk about what was successful in that movement. And first of all, it was identifying inherent leadership, which is something that we're already talking about, natural leadership in the communities, and also bringing joy to the movement.
Absolutely, that's in the burnout section.
Yeah, something that we talked about how we didn't do it last time because we had a visitor, but opening up the meeting with song, resilient songs, and I've been thinking a lot more maybe we just invite musicians or artists, spotlighting talents in our community, just something fun, more than just having socials, but making the meetings fun. Also bringing food and drink is very important. He's always good about bringing wine, and just trying to make it so it's not oh, it's invisible tonight.
Yeah,
That's what it feels
absolutely.
for me, because I have a lot going on, we have a family, and
So does, yeah.
so I need it to be more fun for me as well.
Yeah. Did you want to say something? You look like you raised your hand.
I think that the joy as an act of resistance piece is an incredibly important part of all of this.
Mhm.
Because it's very, very easy. I married that idea with the other idea of you have to be able to focus on what we can control. That's a really huge kind of driving piece of things. Because it's very easy to see everything that is going on in the world and feel very scattered and very we're gonna do this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing, and you're like, I've now suddenly signed up for 7 things. I don't know how to do this. And then the burnout piece comes in really, really quickly.
Yeah.
So I think trying to create the moments of levity and the moments of joy around your activism is
It's
a way
incredible.
to create sustainable activism over time.
Right,
Um,
right.
Because if you don't, like, it ends up feeling like, it's very easy for it to end up feeling like a slog.
Yeah.
And like you're also just constantly swimming upstream when you're in the middle of the
Right.
second administration. That is just like absolutely.
Yeah, I can't believe they did it again. So, so that, I think you should turn to page 8. How late do we go?
We are going to 4:10.
Oh, we are. We got 20 more minutes?
Yeah, I'm gonna just double check that.
Oh, okay. Cool. So these. Oh, fabulous. Okay. All right. Well, then we've got lots of time to talk about burnout. So take a breath. Look around the room. Isn't this incredible? All of these wonderful, fabulous people. Gratitude, right? Gratitude. Yes. What can I control? What can't I control? I can control whether or not I'm going to pay attention to that which I want to be grateful for, that which I am grateful for, right? And so that is really big. What I was thinking about as I was doing that was under how to treat burnout is active hope. So I don't know how many people have heard of the wonderful woman Joanna Macy. You must have heard of Joanna Macy. No? No? Okay. Joanna Macy was an environmental activist and a Buddhist. And she led lots of workshops on how to survive, especially in the environmental movement. Because it is so easy when you think about environmental issues to fall prey to despair, right? Really, really easy to just go, what the F? And what are my grandchildren going to be facing? And why are we doing this to them? And et cetera. And so she has, unfortunately, she passed a year or two ago, but she did lots of workshops on what she called active hope. And that was, how do you survive an activist movement without falling to despair? And the first thing is to have gratitude, is to think about that which you can be grateful for, right? And then the second thing is to think of what can I do? And to find one task that you can do. And again, I think, if you go for all 7, that's not going to be helpful. So you do one, you figure out one that you can do. And you put your energy into that in your mind. One of the things in this How to Treat Burnout tips are mindfulness, right? And if you aren't familiar with what mindfulness is, it's really staying in the moment, staying in the present. So if I'm being mindful of where I am right at this moment, I'm aware of the bright lights in this room. I'm aware of kind of being a little thirsty right now, right? A physical thing. I'm aware of actually a really pretty view of a rainy day, but it's kind of pretty. I'm glad I'm not out in it, but it is, I got to admit, the little wisps of clouds are kind of pretty. Just being aware of where I am right now. I'm short. I have short legs. So chairs like this are never very comfortable. This one isn't either. It cuts my legs here, all right? And you may think that everything I'm going through right now is kind of petty, and it is in a way. But what it's doing is it's grounding me into this moment, this place, right now. Go ahead.
Just wanna, there were two things. One, when you're talking about that, and I can't remember who said this, but it stuck with me, that optimism and hope is a form of resistance.
Absolutely.
And, you know, people know from my group, like, I am the Pollyanna. And I have to be, like, there are moments that I will let myself feel whatever, but I feel like a good part of my resistance is using my hope. And then the other thing that, picking the one thing, not getting burned out or whatever, I'm in multiple organizations. And at one point I did start to like feel like I was just burning out, but what I found is I had a common thread throughout all of them. And so when I'm working with a group, I'm like, okay, I'll work on the home care part of this, or the, like the comptroller thing, because I've done it for multiple groups. I'll work on that part. That will be my role in this group. And that's made it a little bit easier to say, yes, I really want to work with this group. Here's what I can contribute, because it's only like a little bit more, because it's what I'm doing throughout multiple groups. But yeah, when you were talking about hope and centering and stuff, the hope is a form of resistance. Was like I live by that.
It is a form of resistance, and I think one of the things Joanna Macy would say also is that hope is a verb. You know, people say, oh, you know, I don't have any hope, you know, there's no hope. Well, that's assuming that it's some kind of thing that appears or disappears, and it's really tough sometimes. But it's something that we all can do, and we have to. And that doesn't, in my mind, you know, being a therapist also, I want to say, I really believe that people are allowed to have whatever feelings they're having. So if you are having despair, if despair is part of your reality at that moment, okay, just don't stay there. You know, just don't stay there. The feelings are the feelings are the feelings, and then your actions and your choices are what you have control over.
One of the things that I find has changed for me as I've gotten older is that I find this joy in being a drop in the bucket. You know, when I was young, I was raised, like most of us, like many of us in this culture are, to kind of, we're driven by this achievement ethic in one way or another, some of us more than others. And the older I got, the more I found myself feeling like I don't have to be any more than just one more person in this demonstration, or one more person who's willing to be kind to my neighbor, you know? And so I find that when I'm taking on too much, I have to remind myself of that. It kind of goes back to that thing about, you know, what you can control. We can only change so much around us, but we have to find joy in being part of the swell of people that are doing what we're doing.
Can I share something really quick too?
Sure.
Based on that? I'm going to try to do this really, really fast. So I met this man a while back while I was doing my dissertation research. His name was Albert Whitehack. He has since passed away. He was a chief in the Lakota Sioux out on Rosebud Reservation. He was teaching Lakota language at Cinta Glen University, and I went out to interview him about a project I was doing. And he had lost his grandmother at Wounded Knee. He was very old when I spoke to him. And he had been taken to a boarding school. I don't know if you know about indigenous boarding schools. He had been taken to a boarding school. He wasn't allowed to leave there. His father died. He never got to see him. I mean, terrible, terrible things. And we were just talking, and I said, I don't, how do you do it? And he said, well, three things. Gratitude. Forgiveness was the second thing. And then he said to me, you need to imagine the earth. It's on the edge of a precipice, and it's got all these ropes around it. And there are people walking around on the earth, la-da-da-da-da, they don't know what's happening, they don't care, they're just worried about themselves. And people actively committing evil, doing their thing, and they're the weight, and they're pulling on those ropes, and they're pulling you toward the precipice. And he said, and then there's other people, and they're on the ropes, they're holding on, and they're pulling backwards to try to keep the earth from going over the precipice. And he said, you're on the ropes. He said, but if you get off the ropes, if you give up and you get off the ropes and you get on the earth, you may be that 10 ounces needed to push that earth over the edge. He said, if you stay on the ropes, you might be on the ropes the day that one more person gets off the earth and joins you. And if you've ever been in a tug of war, you get just enough to pull that earth back. And he said, you gotta stay on the ropes. You gotta, no matter how tired you are, you gotta stay on the ropes because things will shift. And I forget that myself sometimes. But that was a beautiful thing he said to me, and I've always held on to that. I share it with my students all the time. So I just wanted to pass it on.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you. And I would say to that also is that there's a lot of other people on the ropes. So if you get really tired and you need to sit down for a little while, have faith that there's all these other people on the ropes. Because I would take a story like that, and I might find it as pressure. That if I don't stay on the ropes, the earth is going to fall off the precipice, and it's all up to me. And I don't really think it's all up to me. I really think it's all up to us.
One of the things I share, and I know Robin said this made a big difference, is that someone had told me, pretty much the work we do, it's a chorus. And in order for a chorus to continue, someone can take a breath, the chorus continues. You still get the music, but each person can take their breath as they need it. And that's been really helpful.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just want to say, I've gotten a little more used to just things not happening, like good ideas that are presented to me by people who really want them done but don't have the time to do them. And not in like a lazy way, like they just don't have the time to do them. But I don't either. And so I'll put it out, can anyone pick this up or get this started? And sometimes they just don't, and that's been for me to just be like, that's okay. Like, we're gonna be at this for at least 3 years,
Caitlin?
I actually really like that, and I think that's a really important thing to remind people with a level of regularity. It can feel really isolating sometimes to be the people working on this one thing in your community or sometimes, especially in rural areas, you might be the only one doing a thing for another 50 miles, and that can feel like you are carrying the weight of everything. I think something that we talk about at Individual a lot is just this idea of especially coming out of now the No Kings kind of movement. We started with 3 million people at Hands Off. We had 5 million people at the first No Kings. We had 7 million people at the second No Kings. We had 8 million people at the third No Kings, and it's a testament to the idea that even if you feel isolated in your one space, there are millions of people that are coming out to do this across the country, and that this concept of we've talked about this a lot, and I don't know if anyone else has also watched Andor, but that tyranny is brittle, and the many actions of people across the country all doing these different things. Even if that perfect idea doesn't happen right then, someone else might pick up that baton somewhere else where it's more urgently needed. And it's all of that is the kind of cresting deluge that is necessary to push back in real time. So even if your idea doesn't happen immediately, someone else has probably maybe either found it or might find it and run with it in a place that is where it's even more demonstrably impactful.
And I think some of that goes to one of the tips here on changing your perspective, taking the long view, and practicing non-attachment. What you were talking about was practicing non-attachment. There's a great idea. And one of the things that they do, both in Buddhist teachings and also in some different therapy type teachings, is rather than rather than personalizing whatever it is is just saying there it is, putting it out there. So, you know, like rather than saying I'm despair, I'm sad, saying, well, there's some sadness around this issue. You know, there's some anger, there's some frustration, or there's some joy, you know, but it's not that I am that. It's that it's there. There's joy, there's anger, there's sadness, whatever there is, and there's fear, and it's not me personally all the time. It's that there is fear, okay? And I think that for me, the changing the perspective, I keep thinking about the 100-year perspective. And maybe I should be thinking about a 500-year perspective or a 1,000-year perspective. But I usually think about the 100-year perspective. What was it like 100 years ago, right? And 100 years ago, you know, people were having a good time. It was the 20s, right? You know, and they had no idea what was going to happen, and that there was going to be a Holocaust and another world war and a depression and all of this stuff. You know, they had no idea. We have no idea what's going to happen in 20 years or 30 years from now. And so then I think about, well, what will it be like 100 years from now? You know? And, you know, I kind of write some dystopian fantasy. And other people I know, you know, I mean, I read a lot of dystopian fantasy or science fiction, and, you know, there's some pretty nasty views of what it's going to be like 100 years from now. But I also think, you know, what if when we get past this Trump administration and the nonsense that's going on now, people have some really different ideas about how to govern this country or how to govern in the world that is more of a bubble-up, grassroots, non-hierarchical model. You know? I mean, we used to think, or sometimes people still think, that you've got to have a really strong leader in order for things to change. We don't have a really strong leader. I mean, there's a lot of great leaders out there. There's a lot of great politicians out there. But we don't have one really strong leader, and we had 8 million people at No Kings. We didn't have one march. We had 3,300 across the country.
And the globe, all 7 continents.
On all 7 continents. So maybe this is a different way of governing that really is new, that really is different. Who knows? You know? So that helps me also when I think about burnout. And
I have to go do my reminders.
She has to, okay.
4, 10, and 10-minute break, and then we want to finish together, so.
Back in there.
Split if possible, back in the meeting room at
Yeah. So given that we have 2 minutes left, I mean, obviously, there's no way to have really gone through all of these topics. I didn't want to make this a lecture because I just don't particularly care for doing that. But I hope that there are some resources on here that would be helpful to you. Any last thoughts or any last questions, anything that worked for you in this workshop or didn't work for you?
I have even more hope now.
Good.
So I was gonna say, like, one of the things I think about a lot is that humanity is just a blip in time in the history of the earth, and our moment right now is just a blip in humanity. And so I think a lot of things like, the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice, and that right now it might be really hard. But that it's going to be, but that I have to just keep believing that, the big thing is that it bends towards justice.
Anybody who hasn't spoken want to say something about? Rita, Deb, what's your name? Brian?
Brian.
Ah, I was right. I can't believe it. And
I would say, in terms of all of this, organizing is it's not super complicated. But it's incredibly difficult, and I think everything we're talking about, burnout, volunteer recruitment, developing our leaders, all that kind of, there's a guideline that we can follow with it. And I think it's simple, but it's, you know, it can't just be one person. And it can't just be one person running any of these organizations.
Anybody else? Thank you. Well, thank you all for being here. It was a great discussion. And again, if there's any questions you have or whatever. Also, if you're in Otsego County, I have the Otsego County postcards. You can grab some. This is one way to get volunteers, is to use these postcards, hand them out at rallies, put the contact information for the group in the postcard. So if you're in Otsego County, I have the Otsego County ones and will gladly give you some. So.
Thanks so much.
All righty, thank you all. Thank you so much for being here.